Quick update on Rarely Wrong, and she's been making some progress. I think I updated last time, it wasn't too long ago. She's still going through another month of intensive deworming. Hey, stop. And I'm keeping her on the long reins, but she's gotten a lot calmer coming out to work. She's not, yes, I know, we still have to correct. We're off from the starting gate. I haven't had to, she hasn't been as anxious, and I haven't had to correct her as much or work her quite as intensely to get her focus on the job. So I started working her on her easier direction, which is the left direction compared to going right. So I thought I just might show that part today. And we'll do anywhere from, I don't know, 15 to 30 minutes. Let's see how it goes. But what I am happy with is straight away, especially to the left. The right, it still takes a little more time, and her anxiety level when she's tracking right is a little higher than when she's tracking left. And what that tells me is her coordination, her level of comfort is a little more difficult for her to find tracking right compared to left. So almost straight away, she's finding length through her neck, and even though she's still a bit bent to the outside, and when she does lower her neck, sometimes she still curls it, but more and more I'm starting to see that she's putting the neck straighter between her front legs, where I'm not having to use so much outside rein that it bends her neck to the outside, which tells me her pelvis is easier to stay stable. She's got more control over the stability of her pelvis and spine compared to where we started. So she's starting to release all those chronic patterns of shortening the muscles along the spine and around the hindquarters. And as she lengthens the neck, is indicating a muscle change, a release of contraction, pretty much through the entire midline. Like the chain of soft tissues of muscle, tendon, and ligament connects all the way from the pole to the tail. And so when the spine is pushing down, those muscles are kind of shortening and pulling up. Not really pulling, how do I want to say? When the weight drops down, the muscles compensate by tightening a lot on the top line. And as she starts to get more control over her body weight and more skeletal stability through the midline, then those muscles don't need to be so tight, so they just start to let go. So this voluntary lengthening of the neck, even though it's still got a little bit of outside bend and a little bit of holding and curling through the neck, it's definitely showing that her coordination is improving. She's finding more stability in the way she should, and that's increasing the mobility through the joints, through the muscles, through all the soft tissues, right? So she has a lot of health issues, and one of her health issues is arthritis on the facets of the spine. So part of what, because I've been working on long reins with her while she's been recovering from her liver issue, it's probably been about 6 months of just doing this exercise repeatedly. And she's only now just beginning to really change that muscle use, which tells me she's starting to integrate a change in the skeletal use. And again, she's up and down with her neck a lot. It's bent to the outside still a lot. Or when she does lower it, it's not really straight, it's kind of curled. So all of that tells me we still have more work to do, but it's going the right direction, right? And then her becoming calmer and more focused during a work session, it just confirms that she's feeling like this is easier, that this change in her coordination is more comfortable for her and less challenging that it's just starting to feel better. And that's where we have our biggest breakthroughs in rehab training, is kind of guiding the horse to something that physically feels better, or helps them feel sort of emotionally safer, right? So if they feel unsafe, uncomfortable, or unstable, they're going to resist, they're going to defend, they're going to be in the wrong physical coordination, all kinds of things. Nothing good comes of that. And with Rarely, she's a great example of how feeling uncomfortable in her body is the primary reason she feels unsafe most of the time. And that happens a lot when there are kind of significant physical challenges for a horse. So I don't worry about her behavior. I worry about her physical comfort and her health. And every time her physical comfort improves, as we're kind of slogging through changes in her habitual coordination, every time she integrates another piece of the puzzle, she gets calmer as a result and more focused, because she just hasn't felt comfortable inside her own skin for a long time. And it was getting to the point where not only was she uncomfortable, but as horses age, they get more and more unstable if they haven't really learned a better coordination. So instability coupled with discomfort kind of is the formula for the biggest problems we can think about. And it just makes horses generally defensive, which can mean generally anxious, generally snarky and tense, generally uncooperative, all of those things. They all go together. And so seeing how frequently, as soon as I started her on the long reins, she, within the first circle, is attempting to lengthen her neck. It's not perfect, but she's looking for it. She's trying to find that more comfortable use of her body, and she's holding it as best she can. She still needs the support of the long reins. If I throw her on the lunge line, she just still kind of gets lost. She can't find her way yet into that better feeling coordination. So the long reins and even the leverage of the bit are just helping guide her into equalizing her body weight left to right. That's really what it's doing. And as she figures out how to change her coordination around that more equal weight distribution, she gets a lot of relief. It's just easier, it's more efficient, it feels more comfortable, and it is the healthiest way for her to use her body. So even though her arthritis on her spine, the pathology may never go away, it doesn't mean it has to be painful and uncomfortable for her, even without injections, if we can change the pattern around that arthritis, right? How much tension there is in the tendons, ligaments, and muscles, how the spine is coordinating where that arthritis is. The pathology of the arthritis might not go away, but the pain can. And so the more comfortable she gets, the more I see changes in posture, changes in her kind of ability to focus on the work rather than everything else, changes in her energy, where she just has more self-control, she's a little bit calmer even during fast work. Those are all indicators that she's getting more comfortable inside her own skin, right? And that's what I'm looking for before I even start getting on her again or taking her to the mounting block. And because she's kind of extreme with her health issues and she was extreme with her behavior, it just takes longer. It just takes a lot longer, a lot more repetition to work through the same changes we would do with a younger horse, a healthier horse, a horse that was just born with more talent. It's the same process, but depending on how sort of severe the problems became, whether they were health issues or behavioral issues, the bigger the problems are, it just tells you it's going to take longer to get back to a healthy use of the body and the nervous system. But we're often told it's impossible. So I think just knowing it's going to take a while it gives me a lot of hope, and that's what's kind of proven in the process of rehab, that there are changes that went beyond my expectations with horses that I wasn't sure they could fully restore soundness, or they could ever be ridden again, or that they would even be safe to be handled. And so to me, the amount of time it takes doesn't really matter, because I go, what else am I going to do with a horse that's unsafe or lame or having a meltdown? It's like I may as well help them and give them something better, and then see how far we can go. Right? So rehab isn't for people who have a very intense agenda of winning ribbons, because you really have to work with the horse and work at their speed, work with what is achievable today for their body, right? And it's not something we can force. It's not something we can guide, like make the horse do it using leverage and restriction, because coordination is very, very complicated. And when we restrict or we overuse leverage, we usually just create another layer or two of compensation that makes it that much harder to turn around. And so less is more. And letting the horse find their way is always more durable. It not only leads to self-carriage, but it's like they own it. So even with time off, they don't forget it. And because it's kind of a self-rewarding process, it just feels better, feels safer, feels more comfortable, feels more stable in all the right places, loose in all the other right places. It's like, why not try to keep it? It just feels better to be there. And that's kind of the secret power behind rehab work, is we're always guiding horses into something that feels a little better, a little safer, a little more stable, and they start loving the work. So you can see, going to the left, she's pretty focused, she's pretty calm, and we're just about 10 minutes into it. And this is night and day from some of the problems she was having in the past, where even on ACE, she couldn't calm down enough during a work session to even begin to change her coordination. And that sometimes horses that really aren't making the transition that she's making into a really calm focus, especially during the work, within the first 5 to 10 minutes, then it sort of tells me maybe I need to do some blood work. Maybe I need to kind of check for some health issues. Because even the most challenging rehab projects, it's like horses don't want to feel that way. They just want to feel good. And if they're not getting there with what I know now, then that's one of the things that alerts me to potential underlying health issues that haven't been diagnosed yet. And that was kind of how I figured out, well, I didn't really figure it out. It was recommended by a vet to check her blood work, do a CBC Chem, and I was sort of on that path. I hadn't thought, well, that's a good idea. I was just thinking about giving her some supplements to boost her immune system and see if her body couldn't right itself. But it was a much better idea, suggested by a vet, to do blood work before we changed any supplements or changed anything with her diet. But at least that particular vet agreed with me that the fact that she's still in fight or flight, still in a stress response, still in her sympathetic nervous system more often than she's in a relaxation response or calm or cooperative, it's like just that fact was sort of, the vet agreed that there could be something brewing, there could be something going on. And if we start to think that way a little more often, and it's better when it comes from the vet. Sometimes when it's the trainer, people would look at me like I'm just trying to make excuses for being a bad trainer. Or when it's the owner, sometimes the vets look at us and go, you're just trying to make excuses for your horse with behavioral problems. And I really don't believe that. But sometimes you're swimming upstream, and what I've learned to do is, not argue with the professional. I trust the vet, but I might just look for another opinion. I might get a second opinion. I might look around a little bit. I might do some research, not opinions, but actual research, because there's a lot of papers available online. There's a lot of things we can look up. There's a lot of great websites put together by knowledgeable people about horses. And sometimes we get a clue just by sort of opening up our mind to the possibility that it's not all freaking behavior problems. Usually the behavior is the indicator that there is a physical problem. And whether that's a little physical problem or a big physical problem is kind of relative. It depends on the horse. Just like some of us have a very high tolerance for pain and others don't, kind of Princess and the Pea or, Mad Max. It's like the horse might be very dramatic from something that's simple and easy to fix through training, or the horse might be a bit stoic and just refuse to move forward but have massive issues internally, like stomach ulcers, or like lipomas growing, or like in this case liver dysfunction, right? Or another client, her horse was losing weight, not eating, and turned out the kidneys were failing. So we don't always know what's going on, but I try to give the horse the benefit of the doubt. Just like with people, we're all kind of doing the best we can with what we know, and when we don't feel well, we don't behave well. That's true for people as well as horses. So instead of demanding obedience and getting the horse to submit to our will no matter how they feel about it, really looking at the horse's emotional state is often a clue as to whether they feel safe or comfortable. Whether that's, physical or mental, doesn't really matter. Sometimes they can just get to a point of weakness where they don't feel stable, so they're always on high alert. They're always feeling defensive. So changing our outlook, looking at behavior as communication, whether we like it or not, it's still communication. And sometimes getting to the bottom of why the horse seems constantly stressed out can be information we get from the farrier, from a body worker, from a vet, from some of our own research, or just by sort of adjusting our training, adjusting what we're doing with our horse, and sort of seeing if that brings about any changes, right? So instead of pushing our horse through something that's stressful where they start resisting, maybe we spend some time working on easy stuff again, and then tackle that challenge in smaller bites, simpler steps, kind of piece it together and go, we don't have to do the big challenge all at once. We could kind of do the steps to the big challenge and see how things go every step of the way. Or maybe we take a break, and it doesn't mean not working the horse or not interacting, but sometimes just doing stuff that we know is easy and enjoyable for us or our horse is super helpful at just resetting things. And when we do things that are normally enjoyable, and if the horse is still stressed out, that really kind of tells us there's a problem we don't know about yet. There is something going on that we do not know all about, but the horse is telling us all the same. So this is pretty good as she slows her walk. And like I said, that neck has not stabilized. Her posture is not stabilized in long and low. But every session we're getting closer. And I find when I work her to the left first, going on the harder direction to the right has gotten easier. If she's really distracted and anxious and kind of wound up, I'll go to the right first because it's her harder direction, and that tends to get her to focus on the work. But like today she came in a little distracted, but basically calm, ready to work, and she settled right into it very quickly on the long reins. And that's when I want to maybe work the easy side first and let her ease into the changes and then tackle the hard side second. Right? And so everything just kind of depends. It just depends on where the horse is at. And when you start changing kind of habits of behavior or the relationship, or especially when we start monkeying around with coordination, we don't always get the same horse every day. And the truth is, we never get the same horse every day. But that's why people and horses like routines. They like that sort of stability of knowing what to expect. And when we're doing rehab, it's like we're looking for which direction things are going, but I never really know how things are going to go. I just know if I start to see stress, I'm going to adjust what I'm doing. If I start to see, and that can be stress emotionally, behaviorally, or anything I see in the body that's looking really stressful. Maybe some limping or maybe some stiffness. I might just adjust what I'm doing a little bit and see if we can't make that easier, make the work easier for the horse. And that usually really speeds up the process of changing and working through rehab, is to just keep looking for the path of least resistance rather than getting in a tussle and trying to push through different tasks or exercises or even strategies, thinking if we can just get to the other side, everything will be golden. But it's really much, much, much more about the process than it is the end result. The process with horses is everything, because they are very sensitive creatures. They basically tap into emotional energy, and whether it's a person or a horse, changing habits of movement, changing habits related to coordination is not easy. It is not easy at all. And it's taxing to the body a little bit, because if some muscles have atrophied, they have to regain strength. When some muscles release tension, that's not always comfortable at the first release of tension. It gets more comfortable the more the muscles become supple. But when you're trying to kind of change the use of some tight muscles, there can be a bit of discomfort in that process. So looking for where the horse kind of says, yes, I can do that, I can cooperate, I get calmer as we go. That's like one of my primary beacons for knowing that the support or the lack of support, the exercise I choose, whether I ride or don't ride, like all of those things, the horse is always kind of telling me which way to go, what's going to work today, and when to start changing it up. So I hope that helps. We can see Miss Rarely might be on the long reins longer than 6 months. She's just starting to make the changes I've been looking for. And it was months of seeing very, very little progress. And at least at the 6-month mark, I'm starting to see bigger changes in the right direction. Kind of a systemic change in her reduction of anxiety and her ability to mentally focus. And it's like every single training session, she's kind of getting there sooner. It's lasting longer. She seems happier about it. So I'm still not going to change what I'm doing with her, and we'll just do updates and kind of watch her process of changing her physical coordination. And we can already kind of see she's feeling better about it. But even I'd like to see all that anxiety just sort of go away. I'd like to see her just a little bit happier every time she comes out to work. So we'll leave it there. Thanks, and look for another update later. Whoops, hang on.